Hello, so good evening everyone. This is the start of a hurricane reading vlog, which I thought would be kind of fun. So I live in Halifax, Nova Scotia in Canada, and it looks like Hurricane Lee is going to swing up this way this weekend. Sounds like there's going to be some high winds, there's going to be a lot of rain. I am lucky enough that if it does get quite bad, or if it's saying it's going to get pretty bad, my brother does have a generator and he lives like 15-minute drive away. So I thought I would touch base on what I plan on reading this weekend. First things first, I would like to make a little more progress in the first binding by R.R. Verdi. This is one I didn't know anything about. I feel like it has flown under the radar. I think it has just shy of like 5,000 starter views on Goodreads. It has about 300 actual reviews, so it's flown under the radar, but so far I'm absolutely loving it. I'm about 100 pages in right now, so about 10 chapters in, so it would be great if I could read another 50 pages or 100 pages of this. We may be without the lights for a while, so I also have loaded up on my Kobo a few books that I can read throughout the weekend, so I'll touch base if I have to do that. But ideally, I would like to go to the bookstore to pick up God Killer, which was just recently released. Another book that I feel like has flown quite under the radar, but the reviews that I am seeing are very, very good. And I would also like to pick up You Again, which is a new contemporary romance that is it's likened to When Harry Met Sally, which I absolutely love that movie, and is just like pinnacle fall. Like whenever I think of a fall romance, that is the movie that always comes to mind. So I'm very excited to go pick those up before the weather gets too bad, but I think I'll be doing that tomorrow. Today, I think I'm just gonna tidy around the house, get it really cozy and comfortable for the weather this weekend, and get a little bit of reading done. I'm currently watching the Chicks in the Office podcast while I sweep and everything. Ian will be home shortly, and I think probably tomorrow afternoon we'll decide if we'll go to Jared's, my oldest brother's, for the weekend. So ideally for storms, I like to stay home, but I also don't want to go without power for like 3 days. So we could always just go to my brother's house and hang out and enjoy, spend some family time. He's been traveling so much this summer. I feel like I haven't seen him in forever, so that would be quite nice, but we'll see. As of right now, I am going to get a little bit of cleaning done and keep watching my podcast, but I wanted to just touch base and say that about 100 pages in, basically we are introduced into the storyteller. So similar to The Ancient Mariner or Patrick Rothfuss's Name of the Wind, this seems to be a similar story where we are following a storyteller who begins telling the story of kind of the first evil that is released, and lo and behold, we find out that it is his story he is in fact telling. So that is kind of what we know right now. I'm 100 pages in, and we've actually just gotten the first chapter of him beginning to tell his story. It's 800 pages, so we have a long way to go. And I will say this was released last year, and it was put on my radar at the time, but it was just so hard to get a hold of. And as like an 800 page book, I really wanted to get it as a paperback, and I would recommend. This is similar to Sanderson's Way of Kings. It's just super floppy, very comfortable to read, and I knew with how big it was when I saw it in the store about a year ago that my tiny little wrists, I wouldn't have been able to read it. So I waited for the paperback to come out so I could start reading it. But I've been rambling for so long, so I'm gonna go now, clean my house, get some reading done. Okay, I just got back from getting groceries and stuff, and myself and Ian are hunkered down for the night. But I wanted to say that I picked up like a couple of extra things. So I picked up You Again by Kate Goldbeck. I literally don't know anything about this except for the fact that everyone's kind of saying that it's kind of a literary retelling of When Harry Met Sally. So that's all I really needed to know to give it a go. Plus it was like a bestseller, so it was on sale. And then, weirdly enough, pardon the TV if you hear it, that is in fact Ian. But along those same lines, we stopped at the EB Games so he could pick up a game, and I wound up picking up this cutest thing I've ever seen in my entire life. It's like a little fox adventure. So this is my plan for the weekend. It's Friday night, and they're saying that the hurricane's only supposed to hit kind of at like 3 a.m. here or earlier Saturday morning. So that is my plans for now. We have a little Emma being hilarious. And I am in the midst of the first binding, and I can officially confirm that I put a hard stop to the Bridgerton series. I go more in depth on that in the actual Bridgerton books, but honestly, it was bad enough that I'm not even fussed about watching the show. I was going to try and like watch the show and see if it got a little bit better, if they modernized it a little bit, but honestly, I think the bones of the story was so bad that I'm not actually interested in any kind of re-adaptation. Like, it just was not for me, and bless everybody who loves it, but it just was a little bit too toxic for me to buy into anyone's love story that I read. So that is going to be it, but I have high hopes for this romance if it is like a When Harry Met Sally kind of retelling. It's blurbed by Ali Hazelwood, and I've read none of her books, but I don't know. I have high hopes, but for now, I'm going to call it a night and go put on my glasses and read with my puppies. Okay.
Okay, and that's it. That's a good pat. Give me a pat. Oh, that's a good puppy. Here you go.
I wanted to give a quick update while I could because our power just went out, but I'm over 100 pages into You Again, and I am really enjoying it right now. It's basically like a reversed gendered swap retelling of When Harry Met Sally. So Ari is the female perspective we're following, and she's like this free-loving female comedian, and Josh is the more romantic, believes in long-term love kind of thing. And it is doing something really interesting where it is like swapping those two roles, and the pacing is really good because we're basically following small interactions because they are not friends until later on in the story. We are kind of settling in with them with their initial interactions, and then there's multiple years in between them meeting again, similar to One Day, quite a famous contemporary fiction that happened a few years ago. Emma's just come in from the storm. Alfie tried to go to the door too.
You want to let him out? Mm-hmm.
He went back to bed as soon as no one let him out immediately. But our power just did go out, so I'm going to keep reading for as long as I can, but it is already getting quite dark out. But this is only 400 pages, so I'm about 25% of the way in, and they have just become friends. So we're at a point in the story where it's not jumping through time and skipping through time. They're both kind of settling into where they are in life and making a bit of a deeper friendship connection. So we're seeing their relationships start to grow at this point. So I'm going to continue reading this, but I also do want to pick up the first binding this weekend. I would like to I think I'm 120 pages into that. I would like to make it to page 250 if I can, but again, it's 4 p.m. Power just went out, and you can kind of see how dark it is. There's some trees coming down, more just the tops of trees around my neighborhood and in my backyard. So we were luckier than most. Like, my friend has not had power since very early this morning. So we lasted pretty long, and I'm very grateful for that. But when push comes to shove, I can always pop to my brother's to get some light again as he has a generator, but I also have Tunic. I played like 10 minutes of this honestly, and then I took a nap earlier today, but I look forward to playing a little more of this. It was so cute. But I'm going to stop chatting and read a little bit more of You Again. Okay, so I am back. It is Sunday early afternoon or mid-morning, and I did finish You Again last night, and we did manage to be just fine without power for the night, because my wonderful boyfriend does have a book light, which like I was just prepared to live and die by my iPhone light. But he did have that, so I was able to read a lot more than I would have before, and I did wind up finishing it. And I will say, I'm gonna rate this a 3, specifically because my new bar for a 3.5 romance was The Secret Society of Irregular Witches. I really, really enjoyed that one, and this one did a lot of things right. I will say, like, the tension between Ari and Josh was good. How they built their friendship and like evolved it past disliking each other was very believable. Where it kind of fell apart for me, so last night I thought it was heading towards more of a 3.5 or a 3.75 even maybe, but unfortunately it felt a little bit short towards the end, because specifically, so I did appreciate it was a very realistic falling out. So tropes that I just cannot stand for romance are very toxic couples, or the miscommunication trope where everything can be solved by one conversation. I feel like this was more realistic in the sense that where the characters were at in that certain point in their life and what they had been through up until that point made it a difficult point where they would be able to have a healthy relationship or relationship period. However, similar to earlier in the book where they have their initial meet and then we have a couple year time jump and they meet again, a couple year time jump. So they follow Kate Goldbeck follows a similar formula where they have their falling out and then we have a time jump. And in that time jump, we see Josh really build his life back up around himself in a more healthier attitude and a better valuation system of just who he is and what he wants out of his life and everything like that. We learn he's done therapy and gone through some proactive steps to make himself a full person, which I believe is where you are able to really show up for a relationship. Unfortunately, I did feel that Ari's character, where we find her again and where we see her life has led up into this point, even her friends are kind of sick of it, her not showing up for anyone, her being incredibly self-centered and moping. And that is the point where the story continues, where she decides, oh, I don't want to be this person anymore, and starts to make amends with people. But we don't actually see any kind of real change. So the point she's at in her life, she is now getting over her hardships. So it makes it a little bit disbelieving that there's any lasting change that's going to happen. And it just feels a little bit disappointing when you see one character put a lot of work into changing and a lot of work into becoming a better person for themselves, so then they would be healthier in a relationship, and then you don't see the same for a different character. It just falls a little bit flat. So that's where it lost me a little bit. But I will say, in terms of a romance, it was very fun. The character dynamics were great. I appreciate the kind of gender swapped When Harry Met Sally. That was a lot of fun. The characters themselves are very personable, and it is, again, compulsively page turning. Like, you just fly through it. I read this in a 24-hour period, I think, or a little bit shy of 24 hours. So super, super easy to get through. But with that, I think I already went over that I purchased a new game. So I'm going to sit with my boyfriend kind of by the biggest window in my house. We're going to play that for a bit. It's estimated we'll get our power back on in just a few hours, so won't be too long to wait. So I think we're going to play a game for a bit, and then I will keep reading the first binding, which I'm really, really enjoying. Okay, I'm here to wrap it all up to say we have our power back. It was an absolutely fun weekend. I read not quite as much of this as I wanted to. I think I read, yeah, I'm on page 150, so I read another 25 pages of the first binding, and then I read all of you again. So about 450 pages for the weekend, which isn't too bad. I spent most of yesterday just watching football and kind of enjoying having my power back on, but today I'm going to head over to my brother's house. I haven't seen him in a few weeks because he's been traveling, so I'm very excited for that. But that was the weekend with me. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time.